So the first thing I want you to tell us about is everything that you've just been telling me about as you've been walking through. That as walking through your house, you realize just the incredible range of work that you do. So can you talk about your mediums?
Well, yes, in a way, because when I first came here, and I got into a gallery on Canyon Road, they said, do you want to be a floor or a wall person? And I had to make a choice.
Wow.
And I found that rather shocking.
Yeah.
Because to me, an artist or art can be anything, be it from, drawing a little Christmas card, to doing a lino cut, a wood cut, to cutting out steel, clay, painting, all the different mediums. I used to love doing watercolours with
I saw some lithographs. Egg tempera.
Egg tempera, and then the lithographs.
And caustic I saw
yes,
too. Yeah.
And monoprint, and then clay for bronze, because I felt with the clay work that if you've just done one piece and you show it in the gallery, it's sold and you have no inventory.
Right.
So I thought, well, if you actually fire it, you have the authentic original, and then you have perhaps 8 is still considered art, an edition of 8. And some things, of course, never reach their edition, like the big heads, but I have sold 3 of those.
Right.
So that's
right.
the 4th.
So did that big head start out as clay?
Oh yes, at this size, like one of these little tiny pieces
right.
up there.
So you do a mock-up of a maquette.
And it wasn't with the intention of it being big,
Right.
but I had the idea of wanting these sort of big stones rolling around your garden.
And I'm interested in where your influences come from, because I see, on one hand, I see modernism and minimalism, and on the other I also see a rawness and naivety. And so who inspires you?
Well, I suppose Henry Moore, of course.
I thought so, yeah.
Who I've actually had tea with
Uh-huh.
in Much Haddam. And I love some of his really simple heads, and but also he himself collected a lot of prehistoric work. His house was full of prehistoric work, and I think that was a great influence. I think I was about 16 when I was taken to have tea with him, which was great.
What did you think of him?
Oh, I thought he was wonderful. He was very busy because he was being interviewed by German television. So he said, help yourself to umbrellas and gumboots, there's a whole row there, and then wander around the grounds, and then we'll have tea later, which we did.
Right. And were you an artist already at that point, as a 16-year-old?
Because where I went to school,
Uh-huh.
at the so-called best school, they did not approve of artists. So if you were good at art, it meant you were an idiot.
Wow.
And
Were they really explicit about that?
They were. They said, when I left, I said, about you need to do something where every moment of your day is ordered for you.
Wow.
Thank you. And so...
It's hard to imagine you in that environment.
It was a nightmare. But also you had to do something good for others. So actually I became a speech pathologist.
You became a speech pathologist
Yes.
before you became an artist?
Oh yes.
How did you make the transition?
Oh, only when I changed countries by emigrating. I used to go to, evening workshops, like Putney School of Art. They had art classes, and that's where I learnt, how to make moulds and things like that, all the practical things. So in a way, I'm sort of glad I didn't go to a real art school, because it might have limited me. Because people, even here in America, say, you can't possibly do that. That's going to warp.
Right.
But if you think about, for example, the big, the reliefs, they're quite thick, the clay, which I've trodden out with my feet, and then rolled, used a lino roller to make the form, which is just like drawing actually, but with a roller. Then at the back, as you make a cake, you make grooves in the top, don't you, to stop it being, to make it flat, so it doesn't go rising up.
Right.
And so do that, or like a dressmaker, make a few little cuts somewhere, then when it is fired, it'll take up the space.
Right.
So things like that.
And so most of this you've learned from experimenting. Is
Yes.
it? Yeah.
And I was lucky to get into a gallery straight away, and then I got into the co-op, which was on Galisteo Street, and there was one man doing steel, and I asked if I could cut steel, and I asked if I could come out and watch him, and he was using a plasma cutter,
Uh-huh.
and in 1 second flat, by the end of the week, I had my own.
Wow.
And it's actually, I think it should make me good at pool, because you have to hold the tip really steadily, but just off the metal.
Right.
It's when you cut, so you're cutting actually in air.
So
That's it.
this has been done that way.
Yes, I did that. And that's a freehand one. And but again, if you just keep moving, that's the thing, to move slow, 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 slow. Which is why at first I needed to draw on the steel with, it was actually alabaster, chalk
Right.
marks, and then follow the line, but then I loosened up and it was much more fun to do that.
So is there often a relationship between your drawing and your sculpture then? Do you start with a drawing?
On the cardboard, I suppose I must, because you've got to cut out.
Right, right.
So you can do it with cardboard first to see that the fold's going to work, because I love the idea of cut and folded, so that of course if you want a leg here, it has to start from here, because it's a flat piece of steel. You can only fold it one way,
Okay, right.
and that's fun. You can have hair, you have to cut it flat, but then you can move it and bend it to give it a three-dimensional look.
And is this what drew you to steel?
It
When-
was, yes. Oh yes, I love the idea that you could just have a gestural piece.
Ah,
Now I forget the guy's name who used to do David Smith. He used to do coloured pieces of steel. And then I loved the idea of a cutout, because again you're getting away from detail. You can't put little eyelashes and
right, and you said a number of things about that as we were walking around the
Yes.
house around. Seems like you've got a really visceral sense of how to work, that you don't like. What did you say about hands and brains?
Oh yes, hands and brains, right. So if you use your hands and you see them doing clay like this so carefully, well of course you get too bound up in convention. And that now we need to put lipstick, lips and teeth and eyelashes. But if you use a huge implement like a wooden mallet and attack a bag of clay, a block of clay, in 2 minutes you have a figure. If you think about it, one block of clay, put the other one on top, bang, 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 so it all blends in, and you've got the head and shoulders. Well, actually this piece, I can show you pieces next door that were done like that, but even this piece it was one block of clay, and use the hammer, boom, 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 boom.
Wow.
Some of them you can see the marks much more clearly. And
So
then
you
I
started with a
cheat.
hammer.
He has a face,
Yes.
but lots of them do not.
Yeah, I love that. How do you make your choices? Just like when you work in so many mediums, how do you?
Well, I used to
Choose
have clay, I transitioned actually from steel. First of all, I was a painter, and believe it or not, in the House of Lords, they had an art class, and I used to go and do poster art.
Poster art.
Yeah, poster paint
Uh-huh.
on newspaper. Can you believe that? It was very odd on a Thursday.
In the House of Lords.
The House of Lords.
That's very
class.
strange.
Very
I don't think we do
strange.
that today.
But anyway, so from painting and drawing, that was my thing. I'd never thought about sculpture. And then perhaps in my 20s, once I was married, I wanted to get into sculpture. And then started at Putney School of Art. And certainly it wasn't clay. They had blocks of styrofoam, but use again a saw. So again, you're
Right.
working big and you cannot put detail.
Right.
So that already gave me the idea, like Henry Moore. It's a gesture, it's a feel and it's essence of a piece, of a woman, of a man or whatever. So then I went to steel work, and that big huge sheets of metal. It's quite heavy, to say the least, because it has to be delivered by a big flatbed. And in the residential neighbourhood of Santa Fe, I'm amazed I wasn't reported to cut the steel there. But you do have danger, because the steel, you know, if you haven't gripped it properly, might fly up with a sharp edge, and I have a few scars.
Wow.
Once I was working outside, I was wearing, it was winter, so I had on a ski suit. And I think, I smell something. Oops, it's me.
Well, you were burning?
Yes.
Or? Oh, goodness.
Because of one of the sparks from the plasma cutter.
Wow.
I don't know if that was okay. But anyway, after that, I thought, my friends are in studios, listening to music, making art. So I changed and decided to give up the steel and transition. Well, transitioning is easy to say, not easy to do. So I've read Gail Sheehy's book, Live Your Passion.
Uh-huh.
She said, sit on your hands, do nothing. You have to have a vacuum for something to come in.
Right.
So I sat on my hands, and I sat, and it was over a year. And then I went down to San Miguel on my own, and I decided to get a bag of clay. And that's when I made the heads, my first heads. I made 7 different kinds of heads.
Wow.
And so from there,
And
I
that,
moved to
did that
3D.
also move you further into minimalism then?
Perhaps it did, yes, because if you see those, they hardly register. So if you see that, you can't go really much more.
That's quite lightweight. It's much lighter than I
Yes.
would have imagined.
Well, because they have to be hollow or they explode.
Ah, wow.
So you actually make just a regular cup. Again, it's 2 seconds. Boom! Put them together. And then when you roll it, the air swells and it becomes quite a solid object as you roll the head around. You're rolling
Right.
the clay like this. And but you can't leave it like that. You have to put a little pinhole so the air comes out.
Right.
And you hear it hiss, which is always fun. And these two are very primitive.
So in the same way that Moore or Hepworth were influenced by the rocks that they experienced out in the British countryside and the coast,
Yes.
what have the rock formations here in New Mexico affected your work?
Well, it's river rocks. I like river rocks.
Mhm.
The smoothness and the perfect shape. And actually that's something, it has a natural shape that it actually might have a physical property. I'm sure you could, a scientist, a physicist could measure it. Oh, that's a so-and-so curve. And like the big stones, the lingams, Shiva lingam, they're
Mhm.
rolled in one river in India.
Oh, I didn't know
It's
that.
natural, I've got one outside, and it's perfectly formed because all the dross is cut away. And when I was working with sculpture and I wanted a curve, I'd be carving, it was weak. You could see the curve and the form was weak. But when you hit that perfect curve, I think it's called a katina curve, it becomes suddenly strong, has a strength. And I found that exciting because you work until suddenly it's clicked right.
Right.
I don't know if you can see that little piece of wood.
Right, of course you work in wood as well.
Oh, I love working in wood. But again, it takes so long if you want to become an artist that actually eats sometimes. Then you have to make a mould or something. So I haven't carved for a long time.
So you mentioned India and you were raised in India.
Yeah.
And do you see, did it influence your work? Did it
I'm
influence how you
afraid not.
No, okay. Except for the lingam.
Well, oh yes. And maybe now looking back, but I thought you meant at the time.
Yeah, no, I mean,
No.
did it
yes.
seep into you somehow?
Well, I know that they measure certain things like a triangle. If they're temples, you can't just build it. It has to be measured. It has to have sacred measurements.
Vedic. The Vedic
Exactly.
measurements, yeah.
There you go. And the same with figures. and Mortis, and they take on an essence. Again, I hope my work does have an essence, because that's what I like.
Right.
Like he, you know, I didn't know I'd start, that he'd end up like that. But he has a piece, I suppose.
Yeah, there is something totemic, it seems to me, about your
Oh
work.
yes, some of that, that's very, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And
I mean, you couldn't be more childlike, and yet he reads it there.
yeah, exactly. It's childlike, but it's also, it also feels ancient.
Yeah.
And it feels pared right down to what is a bear.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's funny.
yeah. And today you are not making fine art, you are writing.
Right.
So
Which
another
is a
transition.
fine art.
Did you sit on your hands before you started writing?
Actually, my husband had Parkinson's, and if I had my hands in clay, I'd hear, help, I need help. I couldn't just drop wet hands sticky with clay and run to help. So it was a conscious decision to give up.
Wow.
And the same with writing a lot of, writing a long book, because your thought, you can't come back. So I changed to writing a blog, and that way a blog you can stop. So it was 1,500 words approximately a week, and that was my blog from which another book arose. But I find great pleasure, having got down the words, is then to make them art. Well, I don't know if that's the right word, that's a bit highfalutin, but to make them not deadly boring. So forget saying went. Did they walk? Did they run? Did they drive?
Exactly. Yeah.
And sort of really enjoy the craft of writing.
Right.
And sometimes I'll think, oh, should that go that way? Should it end with an ED or an ING and change this and see how it flows? So I've been enjoying that. And I've kept one bag of clay back, just in case. And after 2 years of not having touched clay, I thought, I better use that clay up before it completely dries out. Took it in my hands, dead. Been there, done that, finito.
Interesting. Right.
I feel it's just, again, perhaps all this is just going through periods.
Right.
Like, I don't mind, I'd love to go back to drawing. I can see that happening.
Right.
The line drawings,
Right.
because I really enjoy it.
Right.
And maybe the egg tempera, but that's all fiddly-faddly, that's exact opposite of what I've been talking about.
I mean, I think that there's a natural overlap between poetry and this sort of work, right? Because you're paring right down.
Paring down.
And there's that thinginess about language,
Yes.
where, you know, language is tactile, language has color.
Right. And leaves room for the reader
Right.
and the listener
Right.
and the looker. Because you don't want to say everything, do you? You want the reader
Yeah.
or the listener to fill in.
That's nice. So when you approach language,
Yeah.
do you think of it in a similar manner to approaching clay or steel?
I've never thought of it like that, but I can see there is a similarity, because like a haiku, you pare down, pare down, pare down. And then I really enjoy that, actually. So my next book is going to be with haiku-esque on one page and then a photograph on the other that does not describe it but might have the essence.
Right.
Like to say, for example, a sack, lone man, a handful of grain, in, out, a rainbow over the earth. Hopefully
Beautiful.
it gives a picture of something.
Right. Right. Beautiful. Well, that's the tricky thing with language, isn't it? That it's generally used by most human beings to direct meaning, right?
Yes.
But in poetry, it's doing something beyond meaning. It's
You're right.
creating a space,
Yes.
right?
And some writing, and I'm sure yours, because you're a writer, and Scott Momaday's, for example, and hopefully occasionally your actual writing reads so you think, oh, how did that person write that? And it gives them a new view, a new perspective on something that's quite ordinary. And I feel the same with art, actually.
Right.
It's just a new perspective, isn't it?
Now, with all of the art that you do, like this is so physical, right? To work with steel, it's so
Yes.
physical. And the same thing with it as you're taking your mallet to your clay. Do you miss that in writing? The
Not.
bodily constriction of it?
No,
No.
I do not.
Uh-huh.
I like the softness now, and I actually used to do quite a lot of feelies, but they always went out of the door. Things you can just feel, like that tiny little sculpture I showed you, and then I've done some discs which I can show you, and people, it just fits right. And actually, that hand, or say that one, I've even written an inscription on the back. It fits exactly in the palm of the hand.
Ah, lovely. So sometimes you're working with language inside of the art as well.
I haven't put it like that. Sounds good. Maybe.
Would you?
Yes.
It'd be interesting to go in that direction, to
Yes.
take your writing,
Yes. Oh, yes, it
into-
could be.
yeah, into matter. Yeah.
I'm not very intellectual, so.
All right, so tell me about, I beg to differ, but
Having been put down at school, they wouldn't even let me use the library. That is such an insult.
You seem pretty brilliant to me. But let's go back for a moment to, you said that you really became an artist when you emigrated,
Oh, yes.
even though you'd done a lot of your training over in London,
In the
right?
evening classes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so what was it about arriving here? You arrived in Santa Fe?
Yes.
Yes.
Directly.
What was it that allowed you to say,
Well,
right, I shall do this thing?
I think because in my head Americans were much more liberal
Uh-huh.
and they were more accepting. And you said, people that I'd hear them say, oh, I'm a writer. Oh, yeah, that's fine. You know, and they didn't get all excited and and also, like being a vegetarian, if you say that in England, they'd have hysteria. I hope you're not one of them there. Vegetarian, you sort of people. And I mean, it was really very constricting. Of course not for everyone, but I don't know how I was stuck in this terrible groove. So here in America, I could branch out, begin to flower. And I had an intent coming to America to learn to feel, to express feeling.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I still spoke of myself as one. One might like the salt. Familiar?
Yeah, I wasn't raised with that, thankfully, but yeah, but I
Yes.
certainly recognize
So
it.
I'm
Yeah.
working out, I hope.
Right,
hopefully.
right.
So
So coming to the
coming to
freedom
this-
of this,
yes.
and what about Galisteo? What
Well,
is-
Galisteo. Well, actually, I'll just tell you about speech therapy first, because I was a speech pathologist and I wasn't going to go back to school. And I worked with the Down syndrome children, and that was wonderful. And then there came a time when the rules became too ridiculous, and I thought, enough. Not only it's no good just changing location, I need to change everything. So that's when I gave myself to sculpture full time. And then what did you ask? Galisteo.
Yeah.
Well, David lived in Galisteo, and we met in '84
Uh-huh.
at the rodeo.
Oh, wow.
And Ramona said, be nice to my English friend, and he was nice to me. So that's all those years ago. And then I moved and built my own house rather than move into his.
Uh-huh.
It had a lot of energy.
Did you
let's
build
say.
this house?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
And I actually drew it. I didn't have an architect,
Oh, how wonderful.
but I made a few mistakes. I forgot there was such a thing as a laundry cupboard. And what wasn't wrong, and place for your vacuum, Hoover.
Right. And did it impact your art at all, moving to Galisteo?
I don't know, well, in a way that I could just, nobody's here to complain.
You can do whatever you want with steel.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, I did some long poles at David's house at the bottom by the water towers. They had long water pipes, and I was on a visit, and I was wanting to make something, so I used a hammer and banged out sort of grooves. I'm not using physical force again. And I remember Antonio riding out on his horse and saying, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm banging, making these water tower, long tubes into a sculpture," which was actually, they showed them in Dallas, down the street.
So
Skybox.
what inspired that? Did you just see those
I just
sitting there and you
saw
thought,
them.
I'm going to do
Yes.
something
yes.
with it?
Oh yes, that's the way I like to work. Not to again think, "Oops, that would, I can see that one."
Right, right.
It feels right.
And do you just follow the intuition and follow the movement, or do you have an idea of what you're looking for from this?
No, when I go in there, if it's a block of clay, and so just like that piece of wood, that was the top part of a huge piece of mahogany, sort of banana, and that piece broke off, and so to make it, so that gave me an idea just to do that.
So really the material leads the way.
There you go. Yes.
Right.
Yes, it does, actually. Of course it does. So if you're given a whole pile of paper, that would make something. Oh, I once made a Noguchi lampshade out of a Safeway bag. Just
wonderful.
using a knife, put them in, and it looked wonderful. Never set alight, had it for years.
That's great. Okay, so then this is something that's very different about writing, is that you don't have the material leading the way.
Oh, I do.
Oh, tell me.
Well, because, for example, my father, he thought he was writing a book called Memoirs of an Eccentric Colonel. And it was terrible. Went into the desert, lay he 40 miles, full stop. So that's a whole chapter for me. So I wrote a book, really in his voice, as though people think that it's me who's written it, writing it, but I had it in his voice. And to write his story, not only his, but it illustrates 100 years of colonial rule through the personal stories of one family. It just happens to be mine. So you learn the history because, for example, my great-great-grandmother, aged 16, put her hair up, get married to an 86-year-old. Hey-ho.
Wow.
Poor thing.
Yeah.
7 years of marriage, but that guaranteed her being white because she was half Indian.
Right. Wow.
So things like that. So actually, the material did get me writing, and then of course David's Parkinson's got me writing. My time 11 summers in Spain got me writing a book about Spain. And then the other book, Long, the Short and the Tall, that's a story of a new American. And I realised that every story I've written arose from a true incident. So I make that, have the true and the fake. True, well, not fake.
Right. The inspired, the imaginary.
There you go. What do you think?